guys. The Matt Kwasiborski Show, calling you live and direct from Washington, D.C., which is a sunny yet wintry day here. We haven't really had much of a winter in this part of the world, but we will be having some cold weather there. On the line with me today is Jacek Spendel calling from southwestern Poland in Wrocław, or Warklaw if you're an American, you look out on the map or you don't understand the Polish language. I tried to play something, Jacek, called the historical anthem of Chichen Silesia, which I'm not sure if you recognize that or not. It's okay if you didn't. I didn't sample it with you beforehand, but it's great to have you on the show. But before we get started with Jacek and introduce him, I just want to let you know I thank Al Gore for inventing the internet. I'd like to thank Spreaker Podcast for hosting this, and also to the loyal listeners who've been downloading the podcast over time. It's the very first international show I've done in a long time, and I always want to get back to it, but emotions play into that for me. But we'll definitely get back in there. So I'm on the phone today with Jacek Spendel. Jacek is the founder of the Polish American Foundation, another foundation within Poland, as well as president of Liberty International, whose mission is to spread the ideals of the libertarian movement throughout the world. And it's a great pleasure to have you on the phone, Jacek. How are you today from Wrocław?
Hello, good morning, Matthew. What a pleasure and privilege to be in your show. And here in southwestern Poland, the weather is quite awful today. In the morning, it was snowing, so it looked kind of nice, white, except that you need to work with your car if you keep it outside, which I did. But right now, the snow is melting, and the weather is not very cool, about 0 Celsius.
Oh.
I don't know what it is in Fahrenheit, probably somewhere in 30s, right?
32, yes.
Maybe 40s.
32.
But life is okay. Life is good, and I'm excited to be your guest. I really admire all the work you are doing, and I'm happy you have this podcast. I listened to one episode before.
Thank you.
And it's great to be part of your show.
Thank you. I just want to give a background of how we know each other, Jacek. And I was thinking about this. It's 2023. We've known each other and stayed in contact for, 15 years now. Apis,
15, yeah.
Yeah, Prague or Apis 2008 will be 15 years come July. But we've worked together in Czech Republic, in your beautiful country of Poland, where my ancestors come from, in your hometown of Katowice, also in the beautiful town of Krakow. We've worked together in Ukraine and Lviv. We've worked together in Greece. We've worked together in Italy. And we also met in Krakow for a meeting which was very special to my best friend that day, Jason. You got to meet him. So we've known each other for a long time. I don't know if we worked anywhere else.
Yes, we worked primarily in Europe together. As you did a lot of fantastic projects in Europe. And I need to say that most of the cases that Matthew mentioned, these were projects that I invited Matthew to speak, and
yes.
He came and he spoke, and he was amazing. He did this out of his passion for freedom and our friendship. He was not paid, so he delivered always fantastic quality program. And that made our friendship even stronger. So I'm very happy about these experiences, and I'm very much looking forward to some new projects in the future. In Europe, but who knows? Maybe in America, maybe in Arizona.
Absolutely.
Who knows where?
Absolutely. Yeah, I think we should recognize our good friend that brought us together in terms of those teaching opportunities, and that's Glenn Kripe, the founder of the Language of Liberty Institutes. These sort of smaller, shorter periods where Glenn travels the world to try to spread the word of liberty. And I know he's a huge influence on you, a great friend of mine. I haven't seen Glenn in a while, but I think we should give him some recognition.
We definitely should. So high five to Glenn. I know he's in Andalusia in southern Spain now. He's spending winter in a pleasant place, still traveling a lot and still doing fantastic things, spreading liberty.
Yeah, he's a really good guy. He has a real heart and soul and passion. He's not in it for recognition. I think Glenn's one of the more humblest people that I've come across in this movement, for sure. But I want to talk about you, and one of the things is that while we were in Prague, thanks to the Fund for American Study, it was my fourth summer doing the Prague program, the European Institutes. And it's always great to watch the rise of our former, you were a former student, but now you're a friend, let's put it to that way. But at the time, and to watch the rise of the career of the alumni, of the former students is fascinating. And your career has really taken off in many, many ways. And you're not someone that went right into the let's put it to the private sector. You went into sort of the public, nonprofit, spread liberty. What was your motivation? That's very hard to do for a young university graduate to just go into that route. Why did you choose to go into that path with your career, Jacek?
Yes. In 2008, 2009, when I took part in the TFAS programs, I did not know I will be working in that sector. I was a activist who dedicated his free time, and being a student in Poland, you have plenty of free time, to be honest. Maybe not if you are a law student or medical student, but I was a student of sociology. I had a good amount of free time to invest into the social work, you could say, but pro-liberty work basically. And I was active in this conservative libertarian Coliber youth group and a few other groups. And then I discovered TFAS, went to these programs, were amazing in Prague, where I met you in 2008, and then I did capital semester in 2009. Mm-hmm. But at that point, I didn't know I can do my career or work full time in the movement, because it is quite hard, as you said. There are not many jobs in Poland. But I volunteered. I interned for a few years for a think tank named Globalization Institute, and after TFAS capital semester, mm-hmm. I was quite lucky to get an offer to work there. Okay. Maybe not full time, but almost full time with a salary.
Right.
So I got, I managed to get a job in the freedom sector, and at some point I worked there for 2.5 years only, but I learned a lot about running independent foundation, independent think tank, how things look from the inside. It's kind of right hand of the CEO of this organization,
right?
And I knew that I can take a risk and start something on my own.
Okay.
And so I did in 2014, and since 2014, I am basically self-reliant. Okay, now I have also a job at Liberty International, but things are more kind of self-driven.
Right.
So
I remember meeting you in Katowice. Yeah, I remember meeting you in Katowice in 2013. You, I think it's the first time I gave my first real presentation in Europe since I moved there in October of 2012, and we had a conversation about your foundation. But you also kind of did venture a little bit into, you have that entrepreneurial spirit, right? It's what the libertarians taught. You had also started your own pizza business, if I recall correctly.
I did. Yes. First of all, I like pizza, and who doesn't, right? And I had this internal drive that I need to do my own business. Okay, foundation is sort of a business, but it's not classical business. It's non-profit, and even though we are private organization and we don't even accept public funds, right. It's still a very different kind of type of organization. But I had this also feeling that I talk so much about regulation, taxes, how business people shall or shall not be treated.
Right.
But in reality, I never discovered it myself firsthand. So maybe I had this little worriness that maybe I'm wrong. Maybe situation is different than I believe it is, even though my family, members of my family have small businesses. So I could observe things.
Sure.
But that was another motivator. And I started with my best friend at this pizzeria. We had a food truck on Katowice bus station, main bus station in Katowice. Katowice is my home city. I lived 31 years of my life, which is most of it. in Katowice before I moved here to Wrocław suburbs. And we also had a little pizzeria in the center of the city. So I experienced that. I ran this business for about 3 years. It's very, very hard. I mean, for me, it's much harder than running an NGO organization. Food business is extremely hard. And if someone succeeds, chapeau bas. I have no words like this. It's very tough, and it takes a lot to succeed. We were not complete failure. We did pretty good when it comes to food truck. It was profitable.
Yeah.
But the restaurant found a lot of challenges.
Yeah.
Not just the question of making not enough profits, but also we had some issues with workers. But it was a university of life, as they say. I learned so much in those 3 years about people, about running business. I learned also about Polish environment for small business. And I'm really sorry to say that, but I was right. This is a pity. I was right. The way that the state on the municipal level and also on the higher level treats small entrepreneurs is pretty bad in Poland.
Right.
Especially when it's food business. So this was not my success story, but there are other success stories, and life is, full of ups and downs. So I still think I learned a lot, and it was worth it.
Yeah. Yeah. The reason I bring it up is because, going to many of our programs together with Glenn, he always emphasized teaching entrepreneurship within there, but actually who does it? And you went out and was like, I have to experience this on my own. And the fact that you had a profitable food truck business, that I want to tell the audience, you put it in front of the bus station of Katowice, right? Which was a brilliant place to put that. It's like, all right, people are taking these long bus drives. There's no food on the buses. Sometimes, they might have food on the bus that packed from home. But, man, getting off that bus and having just a nice, warm, greasy piece of pizza was fantastic and a brilliant idea. And I do remember you telling me about the restaurant when you tried to open up your own physical location in a building, and all the regulations about how high the wall had to be, or the cross. I mean, it was just nuts with the stuff that I was hearing about there. But it really speaks to your passion about libertarianism. So we'll go back to that in terms of your rise. So tell us a little bit about, from the foundation that you found in Poland. You started your own project in Arizona called Project Arizona, which I happily donate to. It's the only international cause that I do because of you.
It's really fantastic for a few years.
And then becoming the president. So tell us a little bit about, you got rid of the pizza business and the foundation and your motivation behind that foundation and why you decided to establish that in Poland.
So with the foundation, what is probably pretty interesting for you, for listeners, is that it was, and it still is, not being run primarily by donations, but rather by offering service to people, educational services.
Okay.
And even under my previous workplace, I started this Polish American Leadership Academy. This was my flagship and main project for many years.
Right.
I did run it for almost a decade. That's where you spoke in 2013 for Polish American Leadership Academy. I actually started under Globalization Institute, but it was from the beginning my autonomous project. That we had this deal that if I'm leaving, the project is leaving. So I left with the project and I moved it to this new foundation. So we are sometimes laughing with Marcin Chmielowski, who is my vice president since the beginning, that in this case, project gave birth to foundation, not foundation gave birth to project. So we started with some ready product, although it was just the beginning, it was just 6 months old. So you never know if it will continue, but it continued very nicely. In first years, we had easily about 200 students per edition. And by edition, I mean 2 or 3 month long course, both online and in person. So in person, you typically 50 people and about 100 to 150 online.
Right.
And people paid for it.
Wow.
So it was in some sense profitable. Of course, it's a non-profit organization, so you cannot spend money on whatever you want.
Sure.
But you can pay, your expenses, some salaries. So you can make a living by doing this stuff. But we started another project, Academy of Young Entrepreneurs,
right,
in Krakow and online. Then we did another project. Then we had a series of video series named Freedom Under Fire. I won a grant actually for that in New York City.
That's right.
From Atlas Network in 2013. It was a great moment. I was very happy, proud, and we did a pretty good project, And then we made actually 2 full-time videos,
right,
2 full-time movies about Krakow School of Economics and Ludwig von Mises. And these are all available online for free on YouTube. So we engage into, trainings, videos, and the foundation was growing and growing very well.
Right.
And at some point in 2016, I started to feel a little bit nostalgic, you could say, or I was missing a bit Arizona, because I went, thanks to Glenn, our good, fantastic friend, I went in my earlier years to Arizona for an internship at Goldwater Institute and a few times as a tourist. I didn't need to pay for hotel. I stayed with Glenn and I loved it there. So I thought how can I connect staying in Arizona, passion for liberty and maybe business, so that it provides me, I can make a living this way.
Right.
This is how Project Arizona was born, under the Polish Foundation, because I had no other entity back then. And this is how we combined all these elements together, and students could go for a really deep leadership program in Phoenix that combined internship, education, a lot of networking, and some fun. Yeah. And we had our first edition in 2017. That's more or less when I finished the pizza business, because Arizona is quite demanding. I did spend. Now we changed a bit the program, but until this year, we used to spend, I say we because I started family in the meantime. So I did go with my wife and now with the kid. Yes. For between 3 to 4 months a year, I spent in Arizona. And eventually, 2018, I was asked by my old friends that I knew from, my early 20s, from Liberty International. Some people remember the organization under ISIL, International Society for Individual Liberty, because we had that name for a very, very long time. They asked me if my Polish foundation is interested in hosting world conference that Liberty International has annually in different places around the world.
Right.
After a short discussion with Marcin, we decided, yes, let's do it. And we did this in 2018. That's where we met, by the way, Matt. You mentioned that. And your friend Jason was there at the party that we had in this restaurant.
Yep.
And it was very successful. It was about 100 people, not a huge conference, but very international. Over, I think, 25 to 30 countries represented, great speakers, including Larry Reed and many others. So that was great. And in 2019, I was contacted by Ken Schooland, back then president of Liberty International, saying that, Jacek, we need to talk to you because we are searching for a new president. And I learned that the organization needs a little bit of, younger blood, younger ideas, new projects. And after short thinking about this, I said yes. And since summer of 2019, I'm also president of Liberty International. So I'm having few hats. My main 2 hats are Liberty International. This is my full-time position. But also I'm still president of Polish Freedom and Entrepreneurship Foundation. And we do several projects under these 2 organizations. What is positive is that they have similar missions, spreading liberty, entrepreneurship, free markets ideas of individual freedom.
Right.
So that makes things easier. Even if you have two hats, but they are kind of similar, just the geographical scope is different.
Right.
LI is global, and FEF is more, Poland focused, Polish language, Polish audience.
Right.
So I'm quite busy, but I love what I do, and I'm very passionate about ideas of liberty and working with young people. I know you do as well. You like this, especially when you observe what happens to them afterwards, right?
Right.
That gives you a lot of satisfaction and motivates for more work.
Right. I do want to just go back to Project Arizona a little bit and go a little bit more in depth to what it is. And from what I understand is that you bring a cohort of international students, is it, or young professionals, a combination?
Students and young professionals. These are people who are between 20 and 30 years old. So usually they're still students, but we often had some 25, 26, 27-year-old young people who are, still growing and looking for inspiration, connections, network, and so on.
Right, and you bring them to Arizona. You bring them to Arizona. What happens in Arizona? Like, tell me a little bit about what they're doing on the ground, where they stay, things like this. Because I think it's a really unique, as a non-American, to start a program like this is what is more fascinating to me.
Yes. So I love this program. Project Arizona is my favorite out of few that I run. Of course, the geographical location plays a role. It's wonderful to be in Arizona when it's cold here, but that's not the most important. Arizona is a place that still breathes with liberty. They have this pioneer mindset. Still, majority of Arizonans do that. That you are owner of your life and you are responsible for your success or your failure, and there ought to be no third party to stop you or to make any trouble for you. So the role of government should be very limited.
Right.
The government is not there to nanny you. It's rather just to make sure that you are free from trouble, and they will deliver you some minimum security, but you make your life.
Right.
And this notion is very widespread in Arizona, so that makes it kind of easier and more fascinating to run a freedom project. I was definitely inspired with TIFAS, with combination of education and in-person experience. In the most of the years of Project Arizona, we had internships. Students went to different organizations. We had classes at Arizona State University, although these were kind of late afternoon classes about U.S. politics and free markets, and a lot of networking meetings and some volunteering. Now Project Arizona is changing a bit. It will be shorter, 6 weeks. But we'll take more students. It used to be like very, very limited, 6 people. Now we can grow to 10 or 12. So we will almost double. And we will have more education. That means now we have our own professors.
Great.
So it's not that we go to ASU in late afternoon, but we hire our own professors in free market economics, Krzysztof Sliwinski, constitutional studies, Clint Bolick, who is also TIFAS alumnus, by the way, and Supreme Court Justice in Arizona, great figure. In civic journalism, we have a Russian exile, oppositionist with a huge talent, Viktor Olejnik, who is actually who is doing some graduate program at Thunderbird School of Global Governance in Central Phoenix, which is great school.
Yes.
And we have also professor from ASU teaching American politics, basically history, 19th, 20th century of American politics.
Right.
So we have very, very interesting curriculum with exams. Then we have two or three networking meetings with successful think tank leaders, businessmen, politicians as well in Arizona, and we have volunteering for freedom organizations like AFP, Americans for Prosperity. That's learning how American democracy works. Sometimes it takes to knock the doors and talk to people about situation in Arizona, about educational savings accounts or stuff like that. Yeah. Sometimes it's helping people in need, to prepare Thanksgiving, because this is a really American thing, to be engaged in charity. And I want my students to experience this as well. But if you ask me, okay, I gave you information about ingredients of Project Arizona, but what does it deliver in the long term?
Right. So it's a good point.
To answer this question, we want our participants who are already young freedom activists to experience firsthand how freedom movement works in probably one of the most pro-freedom place in the world, which Arizona is, through so many experiences with different think tanks, organizations on the ground.
Right.
They see how very well organized freedom movement work, and they get inspired. They also learn American constitutionalism, American politics, American history. They learn where they come for. They learn about the place they come to. So it actually matters that they are in Arizona and in the US, and not just on Zoom or in any place in the world.
Right.
They learn about the place, and most importantly, I think this is super important, they build their own networks. The project is actually small when it comes to number of students, even after the reform.
Yep.
But when you have a small group of very focused and smart people, and they meet successful individuals, then magic happens.
Okay.
And the business cards are exchanged. We always print business cards for our students because we treat them like, maybe not like a businessman, but like very active participants of the social life, including business life. They exchange these business cards. They do things together. And what we observe later is that these people do fantastic things. Some go into business. Some stay in think tank world. Mm-hmm. Some are, very strong oppositionists working in the hard places, like Yuri being anti-Putin opposition leader from Russia, now in exile in Lithuania, being one of the leaders of Free Russia Forum. We have Ukrainians who are very engaged now in this situation, helping their brothers and sisters. We have Jorge, who is from Venezuela and actually works for TIFAS, going from campus to campus, teaching about dangers of socialism. Because some American youngsters are flirting with these dangerous ideas. And here we have a very strong-minded young person who experienced socialism firsthand. He was actually hiding from the secret police and had a very horrible times in Maduro, Chavista, Venezuela. So great project, I think, and changing life of the people. That's what matters, If I don't change lives of the people, I think I will not be satisfied with my work. And if I still do change lives of the people, that gives a tremendous satisfaction.
Yeah, I mean, it's amazing work that you're doing, and it's really, when you hear the descriptions and the passion of why you do it and what you're doing, and the more the details about it, it really sort of resonates and hits home in trying to spread these ideas of less government involvement, more freedom to make individual choices, to pursue any sort of career that you want it's a very sort of like the American dream when I was living overseas, but you're doing it because you're experienced as a Polish citizen, and you're not only doing the movement in Poland, you're spreading it internationally, and I really, really give you a major respect for that, and congratulations. So how does one find out about Project Arizona? I mean, we could, talk about it, but what is your website?
Yes, but before I get there, I just learned that I should tell you one more thing. That that has to do with what you just said. Look, I went a few times to Arizona, interviewed for Goldwater, and started this network, because without my own network, I would not be able to put the project together on the ground in Phoenix. But I had this passion for Arizona and freedom, and one of the main motivators for Project Arizona, I already mentioned some of these motivators, but one that was very important was that I want others to experience what I experienced. Mm-hmm. I want others to learn what I learned, to know about this place, to know about this fantastic achievements of my colleagues from Goldwater Institute and the pro-business, pro-freedom climate, and so on and so forth. So it's this, internal kind of drive that I have a great time here, love these people. Other people should experience that too. And maybe it's nothing sophisticated, but that's what's kind of placed in my heart, so that matters.
Yeah.
And coming to your big question, yes, we run our applications online. The website is projectarizona.us, so very easy. Project Arizona altogether. .us, like United States.
Yep.
It is a project of Liberty International, but it has its own website.
Mm-hmm.
And we are actually actively recruiting young talents now. Deadline is March 20th.
Okay.
So approximately 1.5 months. Application form is not very complicated, but it's also not something you will do 5 minutes before deadline, because you need a reference letter from I don't know, either professor or someone that you worked for.
Excellent.
But it's not very, very complicated. I do recommend everyone who listens, who is between 20 and 30 and interested in ideas of freedom, to apply. And we have, this is the first stage. Second stage is interview via Zoom or Google Meets, we'll decide. And the third stage, only for selected group of people, is the fundraising campaign. They actually need to show that they believe in themselves.
Sure.
And they are able to spread the notion that it's worth to invest in them.
Sure.
Project costs $5,000, but students should raise half of the money.
Okay.
They should raise $2,500. And we, Liberty International, we also raised some money for this project. And we match dollar to dollar.
Okay.
So if they raise 2.5, we grant $2,500 scholarship, and the entire financial side is completed. So this is our new model. Also, we had it a bit differently in the past. Mm-hmm. But I believe this matching scheme is good. It gives people incentive.
Yeah, sure. Sure.
And they need to show that they are also entrepreneurial. To run a fundraising campaign, it's how you are.
Especially outside
performing entrepreneurship.
Yeah, especially outside the U.S., it's not. It's getting. I think the climate for fundraising is getting better and volunteering in terms of giving back, but it is something that's very challenging. Especially with
we are helping them.
Right,
we are helping students. We tell them about the groups that you should reach out to. We help them to set up this fundraising campaign online.
Right.
Of course, they need to work hard themselves, but we provide a lot of assistance. And also, we are looking for fundraising reports they send us, because sometimes it's very hard for them to raise money. They live in a tough country. Yeah. But if we see that someone is working hard and doing his or her best, then we look at this as well. We don't only look at numbers. We look also at the actual work that is put into it. But to have this, I would not say competition, but to have this challenge is actually healthy and good. Yep. So that's why we do it every year, and it works out well.
Excellent. Project Arizona, project.us. If you are international listening to this podcast, going out to come to Arizona and be part of Jacek's program. And your next dates, they're usually in the winter, but this year you had to shift them, right? In 2023?
We shifted. We now changed the calendar of Project Arizona. It will happen since 2023 this year in the fall.
Okay.
It will start on, I believe, October 21st.
Okay.
I can be mistaken by one day. and it will run until end of November.
Okay.
And it's called Project Arizona. However, we will spend at least 4 days in California.
Okay.
Because I already know we are invited for Objectivist seminar to some beautiful place in Orange County.
Okay.
So the Project Arizona will conclude in California.
Okay. Excellent. Excellent. And what a great time to be in Arizona and not in part of Central and Eastern Europe in late October all the way through November.
Yes, we will have Thanksgiving together.
Yeah, that's awesome.
And we'll go back to our countries only in early December when already the Christmas climate is on. So we'll skip the dark times of the fall.
Right, right. Excellent, excellent, excellent. I really do appreciate you giving us more information about that. I do want to jump into, and I've always had this question. I'm not a libertarian in my background. I kind of say I'm an independent thinker when it comes to that situation. I never was exposed to libertarianism until I started working for TFAS. And it was quite surprising coming from the inner city of Philadelphia. It was just a shock to my system. And over time with TFAS, I've known that there's pretty much two schools of thought when it comes to economics. There's the libertarian side of things where it's like limited government to almost no government, which is almost the extreme side of things, which I don't believe can happen. But then you also have the Keynesian side of economics, to where it's the more government puts money in there, it will sort of motivate people to become entrepreneurs and kind of give them that boost. Jacek, when you look at the world, you passionately about libertarianism. Why do you think that is the best way to go for the world?
Okay, so my way of thinking about economics is basically connected to my observation of world and history. I studied examples of different countries and different times, and I see that economy, when it's operated by private entities largely, when it is not molested with taxes and over-regulation.
Interesting terminology there, molestation with taxation. I like that. Yeah.
Taxation is theft.
Let's get a t-shirt right now.
I observed that things work better, and basically, it's also about morality and ethics.
Okay.
I believe. I mentioned this a little bit when I talked about Arizona. This entire notion that I create my own living and I take responsibility for what I created. Mm-hmm. So the entire notion that people can take responsibility for their communities, for their firms, and they can enjoy fruits of their labor. But responsibility also means that if they fail, they take responsibility for the failure. So I don't believe in bailouts and all this, mm-hmm. These are, I think, neo-Keynesian concepts that, some kind of company is too big to fail, right, and so on and so forth. Then government needs to step in, et cetera, et cetera. So to sum it up, it's observation throughout the history, but it's also my own ethics. I believe in freedom and this attitude pro free markets, pro capitalism, right, and the old-fashioned understanding of capitalism, laissez-faire capitalism,
right,
is very much about freedom of disposing your own property. So there is element of freedom, but there's element of responsibility, individual responsibility to full extent, basically. I strongly believe in these concepts, and I think they form good society as well. Not perfect, because nothing is perfect. Even free society, libertarian society is not perfect. Right. There will be bad people and bad actors, right, but if we get as close as possible to harmony, or as close as possible to respect, self-respect, and freedom connected with responsibility, then I think this will be better world. So these are basically my main points.
Yeah, and the reason I bring this up with leads us to the question is in your part of the world, Central and Eastern Europe, for people that kind of don't understand historical perspective, your countries historically from the end of World War II until about 1989, 1991, lived behind the Iron Curtain, so to say, where the Soviet Union, whether you were in the Baltics and Ukraine and Belarus, where you're part of the Soviet Union, or you're governed by it, Poland, Czechoslovakia, Hungary, go for that part of the world.
We were satellite countries,
right? So when the wall fell and the Soviet Union sort of collapsed, some countries adopted these libertarian, influential style of government for their new society, and some didn't. And I talk about Estonia with Mart Laar, Czechoslovakia.
The best example.
Czechoslovakia with
most far radical reforms.
Czechoslovakia, Czech Republic, Václav Klaus, although he's a Russian agent now, he did put away the spurred the Czech economy to what it is now, and going even to Poland. I had the pleasure of meeting Lech Balcerowicz,
Leszek Balcerowicz,
who was a huge influence into the Polish way you guys have developed. Whereas other countries like Hungary, Slovakia had some influence under Ivan Miklos, good friend, and they sort of kept some of his policies. But why do you think that it worked, this flash and crash kind of way of the libertarian economic systems in these countries compared to others that didn't implement it? And you're seeing successes economically develop of those countries. Why do you think that happened? And can that be implemented in other Western governments today?
Okay, first part is maybe a bit easier. The second part is harder.
Yeah.
It happened mostly because the old system got bankrupt. It didn't happen because there was the libertarian or free market gene in the nation. Let's remember that even Solidarity movement had a lot of not very pro free market postulates.
And that's the Solidarity movement in Poland. Yeah, Lech Walesa.
Yeah, that's a movement that accomplished a lot. It's a movement without which we would not be able to track down communism, or it would happen probably slower. It was a labor union. That was a great trick, by the way, to form a labor union to attack communist government. They expected, intelligentsia to go against them, maybe small entrepreneurs, maybe students, but they would never think that their own people, the labor class, would turn their back. The very, very smart movement. Anyway, so but by saying that, I want to stress that it was not, this free market attitude was not something super popular, and that people were chanting, "Give me free markets." No, people didn't know exactly what they want. They just know that it got bankrupt.
Right.
And we were quite lucky to have Leszek Balcerowicz and his team. That first of all, that they were designated by Tadeusz Mazowiecki, first non-communist prime minister, to prepare these reforms, and then that he got some time, not all the time, it was limited window of opportunity.
Right.
He got some time to implement quite radical reforms. Estonia, even harsher, I should say, even more radical reforms.
Radical, yeah.
But Poland and Estonia are probably the two best examples. Czech Republic, earlier Czechoslovakia, was pretty good. But not all of these countries, as you mentioned. But look at Hungary; they did less.
Yep.
But they were also less devastated by communism because their communism was milder.
Right.
They were less brutal and less, I would say,
Oppressive.
in terms of economics. What they implemented in Hungary was less ambitious than in Poland. They nationalized less companies. There was still private incentive in Hungary in a larger degree than in Poland. The country was in a much better shape in 1989 than Poland, economically speaking.
It was.
So maybe this starvation for something new and the need for the change was slower than in Poland, where we had basically no choice. We needed to change the course. And I think that helped. So Hungary was a different case, but very different case was Ukraine. in 90s.
Yes.
Still full of ex-communists, oligarchs, and people who didn't think too much about reforming things, but rather how to get richer and keep things untouched, largely. So, and the second part of your question, how to push towards similar pro-freedom reforms now.
Yeah, could you implement something like what happened in Poland, for example, or maybe Hungary to a lesser degree in a country that's sort of sitting in the West? And maybe that's a bit ambitious of a question for this podcast, but I was thinking like if a country like, let's say, I'm just trying to think like Canada.
Like France?
Like Canada or like France. Canada. Yeah, France or Canada.
France is so tough, In France, I think President Macron wants to reform pension system and move this retirement age from 62 to 64.
Yes.
And there's like over 1 million of people protesting on the streets. Schools are not working, buses, trains, nothing. The country stopped. Like, it's really hard to fix French economy, I think.
Yes.
And fix the system that they have. I don't know that much about Canada. I think Canada did some pretty good reforms in late 90s and early 2000s. For decades, they were behind the US in many statistics, including economic freedom, 70s, 80s, maybe even 90s. Yeah. But when you look, something started to change in Canada in late 90s and early 2000s, and they got much closer to US. Maybe US started doing things worse. That's another possibility. Yeah. But I think Canada did pretty good reforms. I heard about some anti-bureaucratic, like cutting the red tape. How do you call it?
Red tape.
Red tape. Yep. Yes, in this province where Vancouver is, British Columbia, they did some fantastic reforms in early 2000s. So Canada has capability for reform.
Okay.
They have this ability. I don't know if they are doing it right now, maybe not, but certainly they proved that they can. France, I'm not sure. But look, even here in Eastern Europe, the fruits of the reform are not so much appreciated. We have a populistic government in power that is a mixture of nationalist ideas. They represent a mixture of nationalist and social welfare ideas.
Yeah.
For our listeners from US, that's very hard to describe on the political landscape because you associate the right wing with more free markets, less government. And they also call themselves right wing, but they want more government and more taxes and more regulation. They are just traditionalists. They are socially conservative and nationalistic. So they are not the left, but they are very different kind of right wing than what you have in North America.
Yeah.
And this kind of mixture, cocktail of ideas is unfortunately dangerously popular in countries like Poland or Hungary. Hungary even more than Poland. So what is the root of popularity of this kind of ideas? Because they are anti-Balcerowicz. These people hate Balcerowicz. They say Balcerowicz must go away. His reforms needs to be rejected. Why? The main thing is kind of enviness, that even though all social classes grew under reformist governments, some of these governments were more pro-reform, some less, but all of them were pro-reform since 1989 to some degree. But now this government we have, this populist cocktail of right-wing ideas mixed with socialism, these guys say that less fortunate, let's call them, classes of society are worse off during these pro-free market reforms. In reality, these classes also grew. All the classes grew. Poorer, medium, higher. If you look at statistics, you will see this. But they are upset that there are maybe some gaps between these classes, and they say that we should equalize. So this is the language of the left in the United States. but it's copied by the nationalists in Poland.
Right.
I think Orban does similar thing in Hungary. So the equalization happens through more taxation and more social welfare spending.
Right.
And it's not 20% more or 30. In Poland, social welfare spending quadrupled in last 6 years, 4 times more. That's crazy numbers. I think we should focus on coming back to principles of Balcerowicz right now, because otherwise we will end up like Greece or worse. We are in the very dangerous spot. So you can say that there's a lot of work for people like me and other pro-freedom, pro-free market people.
Yeah.
And maybe we did something wrong. Maybe we spoke not enough about the fruits of the reforms. So there's a big possibility about this.
Talk to me a little bit about the foreign policy of libertarians in the U.S. who have a very anti-supporting other countries. We have a big movement coming into our House of Representatives who are willing to, really stop spending the money to fund Ukraine. And why do you think this could be a potential mistake? I'll be right back.
Yes. So I am a libertarian, but we sometimes joke that there are no two libertarians with the same opinion. We differ on things. We have something in common, obviously. It's the notion that people shall be free to maximum extent, and basically freedom shall be limited only with freedom of other people. So if I don't hit your nose with my fist, let me wave my hand wherever I want until I hit you. This is just an illustration. And we believe in private property, which is extension of human liberty. And we believe in a free society, in a world where people can freely exchange value for value, create new value this way, and be, again, I will say this word, unmolested by the government. And the government shall be as small as possible. Some of us, radical libertarians, believe there should be no government at all, for good reasons. But that's a different question. So we have things in common, but we differ.
Right.
American libertarians, first I will say a few words like, why do they have this opinion? And a little bit defend them.
Sure.
They have this opinion that the U.S. should not be proactive around the world in the different theaters of conflict, because they say it will only add fuel to the mess.
Mm-hmm.
They say, look at Afghanistan, look at Iraq,
Right.
look at Vietnam. We only added to the fire. It didn't create any good. The fact that we mingled, that we sent our troops, and that we were actively involved has not solved the conflict. It only added to the fire. The conflict was worse at the end. And this is partly true, but
True, I agree.
so I understand where they come from. I do understand where they come from. However, we should understand that the world is quite complicated, and there is something like the race of big powers, and we libertarians don't like this race. Even
Right.
me, I don't like the fact that the big geopolitical powers are racing, and because it's not the world we are used to. We are used to win-win world, like in business, like in society, where both of us can win. This is a race when for one to win, another need to lose. And this is a global race of big superpowers that I don't enjoy, and these libertarians don't enjoy. The difference between me, my colleagues here in Europe, and good number of American libertarians, not all of them, is that we sort of realize that this is the world we live in, and if our pro-Western superpowers, allied superpowers, do not defend what they have, at least, then some authoritarian, ugly superpowers will take their chunk,
Right.
and less people will be free around the world at the end.
Right.
So
Yeah.
we don't like this This game is ugly, but this is how it works.
Right.
This brings me to conclusion that collective methods of defense are necessary. Meaning, armies of countries like Poland should collaborate with armies of United Kingdom and the United States in order to make sure that the free world remains free. Because there are very dangerous powers like China, like Russia, and not only Iran, that actually they don't satisfy themselves only with what they have.
Right.
That would be not a big problem. I mean, I feel pity and bad for people of these countries. But if they only experiment with this crazy style of government, authoritarian or even semi-totalitarian, in their own countries, that will be much less problem. The big problem is that they are expansionist and they want to go out and grab what is not theirs. And that's a huge problem. And the Ukraine is right now on our eyes experiencing this hunger of in this case is Russia claiming we are the proper owners of the country and these people are ours, this land is ours,
right.
And we will pay any price to regain it. I think that the free world cannot just watch this. I think many of my colleagues, libertarians in America, would say, oh, this is upsetting that there is a war, but what can we do? This is their sphere of influence. This is the sphere of influence of Russia. They must exercise it. It's a pity, but that's how things must go. But then I respond that United States in late 18th century was in the sphere of influence of Great Britain.
Right.
So perhaps there should be no American Revolution or what? There should be, because freedom is unfree and you sometimes need to go stand up and fight for it and ignore the geopolitical sphere of influence. This is not holy cow or holy grail or anything like that. That someone claims that, oh, I like to be in this area. Ukraine is a country. It's not just a region. It's a country that has population that in their majority, vast majority, is oriented towards the West. They want liberal democracy. They want free markets. They want freedom of speech. And they want to be part of Western civilization, of things that we share in the West, cultural West, of course, and that matters to me. And I don't understand the idea that they are in the sphere of influence, so they should be sold to someone. No, so Russia goes to Ukraine, invades the country, and I believe it's our right, it's our task.
All right.
Right now to do whatever possible to stop them. This is not just about helping Ukrainians, let's remember. This is also about saving ourselves. And this message about saving ourselves resonates more in Europe than in the US. Exactly. I understand this.
Yeah.
Because US is so far away. So, but I should be able, I sometimes have a problem with influencing my Polish, maybe not friends, but people from Poland who claim that it's not our business. I say it is our business because we are on the menu.
Yeah.
We are next.
You are on the menu, yeah.
So I can understand these American, isolation is a little bit more than if someone's like someone from Poland says things like this. This is mind blowing. In America, I still think that America should be involved because of this, race of this big game of the powers. Like if America doesn't stand up, then Europe is just too weak.
Yeah.
But I want to say one thing, and maybe because I'm not fan of Donald Trump, and you are not as well. I know that you probably criticize him even more than me. But he was right about one thing, and I often say that he was wrong about a lot of things, but he was right about one thing, that European countries, especially Western European countries, do not invest enough in military. and they don't treat this with enough seriousness. They pay very little to NATO. They pay very little for the armies, and they want United States to take over the defense responsibility forever. Mm-hmm. That's impossible. He was right about this single issue, unfortunately, and we see the fact that European countries still continue to be not very oriented towards their own military and defense. We see the result right now. The result is still America needs to be the main payer for the allied forces. I think in my ideal world, like of course they don't exist, but in my opinion, the leading countries in the coalition should be European countries. Poland, Germany, France, United Kingdom, because it's our vital interest. I think United States should be still in this coalition, but not necessarily as a main payer. But right now the situation is what it is. We will not change it. So it's better than US. It's number one than if United States suddenly drops out.
Yeah, that was a very.
I strongly believe the Western world, with its freedoms, is a big value, and we should defend this. Otherwise, we will let the authoritarians, the semi-totalitarians, to take slice by slice. Ukraine is just first slice. Yep. What we believe in, and that's wrong, because to defend yourself and to defend your nation is more important than to have low taxes. I'm sorry, but that's true. I want taxes to be low. Don't get me wrong, even zero. I want the regulations to be very low. But if I am blind for a barbarian coming to a country and taking the essential freedoms away of the people, then my talk about taxes is less relevant.
Good point.
That's my approach.
Yeah.
I want more freedom-loving people to share this.
Yeah, I do appreciate that. And yeah, the one thing I will touch back on is that President Obama actually started pushing against David Cameron about, NATO countries are not putting in enough for their defense system. They should go. So Obama did start that, but Trump rode that horse. And, he took that in there. And it is my opinion that if Trump gets back in power, he will take the U.S. out of NATO. Because the American people, the general American people, when you talk to people in the Midwest, the people of his base, or even maybe not his base, they think for every dollar that goes to Ukraine or to NATO, that's a dollar taken away from the American people to improve our situations in the United States. That is sort of the general common approach. Like, why should we worry about people over there? We got enough problems in our own country. You were very passionate, though, on that. And I kind of want to give you give you a chance for last chance words. We're pushing up against it. You have a meeting in a couple of minutes, and just give me some final thoughts, if you can, about that part of the world and why it's important again to support Ukraine to the American people who just think, well, just let it go to the sphere of influence.
Yes, and supporting Ukraine doesn't need to be always government to government. Mm-hmm. As a libertarian, I passionately believe in free society and free charity, things like that. And I think this war showed the power of the people tremendously. This is the first war probably ever, at least in the last century. I don't record 19th century and earlier, sure. At least in 20th and 21st century, the first war where people from other countries are able to donate their free money to buy armor for people in Ukraine to defend their houses, villages, and cities. I mean, this is basically libertarianism, right? In essence. The fact that I can donate money so that the Ukrainians can buy, some strong guns or to buy also
medicines,
defensive measures.
Foods. Yeah.
That is amazing. Mm-hmm. And this is important. So I know a lot of Americans who donate money to Ukraine.
Yeah, true.
Without even thinking about geopolitical games. Right. I mentioned the geopolitical situation already, but also on the human. Look at the human side of this. There are people like us living in Ukraine, and they believe in similar stuff. They believe in similar things, and yet there is this superpower coming to them saying your life should be ended and your liberal democracy shall be ended because we believe you are part of us, even though you don't want to be. And we will use even terrorist methods, because what is basically dropping bombs on civilian blocks,
Hospitals,
houses, that's terrorism to me.
Yeah.
They do this a lot. This is not a bomb dropped by mistake.
Right.
This is on purpose, and they want to create hysteria. They want to create fear. These are terrorist methods. So think about these people, how much they suffer. I have a lot of friends in Ukraine. You have too, and we communicate with them. So to help them matters, not just government to government, and that's important that our governments basically help to Ukraine to stop Russia and to regain what was taken from Russia.
Right.
Especially that peace because that people say let's do peace right now. We know where is Ukraine, where Russian troops are. Let's cut it. Let's have peace right here, right now. This will end up with civil war.
Yep.
Because Ukrainians will never agree on having this will be like Poland during the Second World War.
Yep.
Our underground army was really troubling Germans, really, all the time.
Yep.
Attacks and bombs being blown and so on and so forth. This would be the peace to sign right here, right now. They need to kick Russians out of the occupied territories. But we also, as humans, good people, shall continue to help Ukrainians in need. In my opinion, everybody will do what they want, and I this is just my little call. Excellent. But I don't want to decide for people. They are very, very fantastic Ukrainians. Maybe not. Sometimes I have friends in America saying, but they are some Azov battalions who are nationalists. I say, but you know how many? There are very few.
Right.
And in every society, you have radical elements. And the government and the society is not nationalist, not Nazi at all.
Right.
So this is the propaganda machine. They will take few examples. Yeah, Azov battalion exists, and they actually do some good work. They also have,
and they've reformed. You see the Azov battalion members.
They reformed.
Yeah, they've reformed their ways. You see many pictures and videos of them dancing with, in synagogues with the heads of the rabbis and the Jewish community. Like they really have. They just, they.
I didn't see that video, but I know that they changed. Even whatever ideology they have, I know what they do on the front. They fight hard for the good cause.
Right. Exactly.
So this is just a method of spreading some dirt. Yeah. Of course, they are not 100% Ukrainians are perfect.
Right.
But no single nation is perfect.
Right.
Taking few black sheep and saying that the country is dirty, it's not worth to defend it.
Right.
Please give me a break. That's not what people with essential sense of being right should spread.
Final question. I want to go off a little positive note. When I just think about this in about one or two sentences or words, Jacek, when I say the word freedom or liberty, what does that mean to you?
Mm-hmm. So I will not give you explanation of the difference because I don't know. It's not my thing. But obviously, freedom could be understood on many different levels. Metaphysical level, political level. In my activities, I tend to focus more on negative freedoms, which is connected to politics. And I don't say that this satisfies the entire meaning of freedom, but I will focus on this for now. So the negative freedom I have in mind and that I work for basically is the state in which every human is left to decide for him or herself about his or her life. It doesn't mean we want society of isolated islands. No, quite contrary. People, when they are left alone by the government, and this is what I have in mind, the relationship between government and an individual, government should leave to maximum extent individual free. And this individual being free, we know from the history, has a tendency to work in groups in the most harmonious way, create families, self-help. And this war in Ukraine even shows people who don't know each other, from divided by thousands of kilometers, help each other.
Right.
Are they told? No, they do it out of their good heart. And they would never be able to do this if they are not able to do it financially as well. And capitalist free market system enables you. If you are poor, like in Venezuela, you don't send money to Ukraine because there is nothing to share.
Right.
So that's another story. And so to be left free to decide about your life, together with responsibility.
Perfect.
That's my notion of freedom, and it should extend to economy. It should extend to social life.
Perfect.
Even the freedom of speech, connected with responsibility. Because if you say stupid things,
right,
that you can be ostracized. It's not that every speech is good. Free speech doesn't mean all speech is good. Sometimes there is a stupid speech.
Yep. And
outrageous speech, but ought to be free.
Great. Jacek, it's been a pleasure here. We're going to take a little song up. It's wonderful talking to Jacek Spendel, based in Polish, a good friend of mine for the last 15 years, a huge leader in the freedom movement, up-and-coming leader in the world. Today, it's been a pleasure talking about Project Arizona, Liberty International, the Foundation of Economic Freedom, the Polish-American Foundation. Fantastic time. I really appreciate your time today. And I wish you all the best, and I hope that we could do this again, get you on a podcast. I hope you enjoyed it, and I'll ask you just to spread the word when I get it all publicized, and then maybe share it around with your community. It'd be fantastic for us to do that.
Yes, I would love to. Next time we should meet in person.
Yes.
So think of Arizona maybe in the fall, or let me know when you come to Europe.
Absolutely.
And thank you for doing this important podcast, for connecting with your friends, with your old ex-students like me. That all matters. I wish you all the best, Matthew. Thank you for doing great work.
Thank you so much. Have a wonderful day. And I'm going to take us out here a little bit with a Ukrainian song called Czerwona Kalina.
Slava Ukraini.
Slava Ukraina.
Червона калина похилилася, чогось наша славна Україна зажурилася, а ми тую червону калину підіймемо, а ми нашу славну Україну розвеселимо, а ми тую червону калину підіймемо, а ми нашу славну Україну розвеселимо.
It's been the Matt Kwasiborski Show, calling you live and direct from Washington, D.C. with my great friend Jacek, coming from Wrocław, Poland, which is in southwest Ukraine. Thank you to all the loyal listeners out there. And remember to inspire the inspiration. Do not wait for the inspiration to inspire you. Have a great day. Have a great weekend, everybody.